Cast August 2nd, 2023. If you haven't yet, please subscribe in all our channels, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Apple Podcasts. You can also listen to us on your smart speaker. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave a rating and a review. It will help us out tremendously. We're also on on online radio. Visit our website, thesportscast.net, and our Twitter. Hit that follow button, the X app, actually, on the Sportscast One, and also Instagram, the Sportscast One. Check out our app, the Sportscast for iOS. USA, always a favorite for the Women's World Cup, almost got eliminated by a ball shot to the post. And join us all the way from up north, Hal Phillips. Welcome back to the Sportscast.
It's my pleasure, Santi. Always a pleasure to be here. I'm not that far away, I am in the country.
Yes, you are in the country. We've been both out. I had a major cold this past weekend. I'm over it. Hal's been playing golf, but how's been your summer going so far?
It's going great, and now that the really hot weather up here has subsided, I'm hoping the rest of the country will experience that as well. Sounds like after 31 days of 110 or above, Arizona is getting a break. Let's hope that's over with, but something tells me it's not.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. August is typically a hot month for Florida. Hurricanes kind of creep up a little bit. September is our high month, so
right,
still got a journey ahead. Anyway, let's go into New Zealand. They're enjoying great weather down there. USA finished runners up in their group, and they almost lost. Actually, they were tied 0-0 for most of the match, but at the end, towards the end, Portuguese player Ana Capeta unleashed a corker early in the second half stoppage time, and it ricocheted off the post. It saved the U.S. women's team. We would have been eliminated, Hal.
Yeah, I'm looking at these player ratings, and they seem to be tracking the happy talk that has followed this game to a certain extent. Look at all those green numbers for a team that was completely outplayed by the number 21 team, in the world that had never been to a World Cup before. This is a very interesting game. The last two games that the women have played have been fascinating, mostly because they were played off the park, really, for long stretches of these games. I guess that's not so surprising with Holland. They tied 1-1 in the second game in this group. We knew that was going to be a tough game, but I don't think that anyone expected Holland to pack the midfield, Man City style, and basically pass their way through the U.S. at will, knock it around with great patience and sophistication. And then that really contrasted so starkly with the kick and run direct game that we were playing. I mean, which team is the favorite? Which is the best team in the world? 1-1, interesting game, fun game. The Portugal game was just a mess. I mean, Portugal completely confounded us. They did the same thing. They pushed all sorts of central defenders into the midfield and passed the ball around us at will. The U.S. had some chances to score, but as you said, the best chance came in injury time and would have sent the U.S. home. They've not finished second in a group since 2011. I'm not sure how important that is, but I guess it was interesting to me that this team had no conception of where it was. They give up a goal in that game, they're out. They're still going forward trying to score against a team they had not scored against in 90 minutes. So the team sort of had a competitive disconnect. They didn't understand their position in the tournament. They were committing numbers forward and exposing themselves in the back with great consequence. It would have been fun to get a goal and win the game and maybe win the group, but they didn't really have a chance to win the group, and they nearly sent themselves home. It was a pretty sobering moment, I think, for the whole U.S. contingent.
Yeah, as Al said, there was not much spark. Rose Lavelle started for the first time in this tournament, and Lynn Williams replaced Trinity Rodman. Trinity Rodman did not start. She did start the previous two matches, but had no spark. There was a lackluster, as they've been in the first two games. They haven't had a good tournament. They're turning the ball a lot, making passes into empty spaces, and not finishing the chances they did have when and obviously, had a huge wake-up call in the second half. This U.S. team has some experience, some new players. What do they need to do to turn things around? They're in the round of 16. They're going to play Sweden, which is a rival that we're very familiar with.
They've had trouble with Sweden in the past, but I think in a way it's a lucky draw for the U.S. They finished second and they had to play a group winner, but Sweden plays very directly as well, and I think the U.S. probably does it better than they do. In fact, I'm very confident that they do, and they probably should win. But boy, if you're looking at the U.S. on tape, those two games show how weak our midfield is. And now Rose Lavelle is out and will miss the Sweden game. If they win there, she'll obviously return. She's not injured, although she had been. She's back to full fitness, they tell us. But this graphic that you're showing on the screen is useful. The U.S. is playing a 4-3-3. That puts Alex Morgan is not dropping into the midfield to help out Sullivan there in trying to knock the ball around. She's playing dead forward, as was Trinity Rodman when she was in the game, and Sophia Smith on the left is another mainstay. But they're outnumbered in the midfield, and I don't know how that they fix that, because who are you going to put into the middle of this maelstrom who's actually skilled enough to orchestrate? I've watched this team for 2 years now. They've gotten by without this ability. Julie Ertz, number 8, is a center back. She could push up into a withdrawn sort of midfield role if he played that. But I haven't seen them play 5 in the midfield. Portugal bossed the game against us. They bossed it, and they bossed it with numbers, and they bossed it with technical ability. I don't think we have the personnel. I don't think we have the numbers of skilled midfielders to pack, the midfield back against someone that tries that against us. And I don't know that this team recognizes just how vulnerable they are. The end of that game, I thought, was just really, really compelling evidence that they've not been in tournaments where they've had to scramble to get into the group stage or to get out of it. That's the position they were in, even if they didn't recognize it. And they're going forward trying to score a goal and win the game and maybe save a little face. They nearly got themselves dumped out of this tournament for no reason. I'm not sure how tactically astute they are, because they blow teams away so often. It's a really interesting situation.
Or has the world caught up to the U.S. women's?
I think it definitely has, and I'm gonna pimp my my buddy's book. Andre Markovits has written a very interesting book called "The History of Women's Soccer in America and European Football." It's really about how European football and women's football have evolved in very different ways. Starting in about 1970, the women in this country have gone from strength to strength. A lot of the reason is that there wasn't a men's program sucking up all the cultural cachet and money. Our men's program wasn't any good. So when we launched a women's program, there was space for them, and they came out of the gate as the best team in the world, and they've been the best team in the world since 1991. In Europe, they couldn't get proper status at the clubs that run soccer in France and Germany and England. They were an afterthought. Well, that has finally changed. They've finally broken through. Now, what does that mean? They're accepted culturally, but what it really means, and all this is from Andre Markovits, I'm just observing and reading his work. What it means is that clubs like Lyon and Bayer Leverkusen and Wolfsburg and Chelsea and Man City, they have women's programs now, and that means they have money, which the NWSL teams don't have in this country. But more important, these women have access to the training and academies set up by these clubs years ago. This is how you turn out great footballers. And all you need to do is look at Portugal and Holland to see how well it works. They were better on the ball than us, just better. They were more aware, more able to play with each other and to pick a defense apart. They walked right through us. And if they didn't like it, they knocked it back out, maintained possession, and tried the other side. we're pumping it forward to Alex Morgan, who's really misplaced as a number 9, and hoping for the best and hoping we can beat somebody on the wing with our superior, strength and speed. It looked like an old-fashioned game between the U.S. men's national team playing kick and run against a sophisticated European team that keeps the ball on the ground and knocks it around. That's what I saw. And if you want to check out Andre's book, check out dickinsonmoses.com. We share a publisher. That's one reason I know his work so well. And
and we can post that in the description.
Yeah, please do.
And to piggyback what Hal said, a lot of these European clubs have a women's program as well. All the Premier League does, Burnley, Manchester United, City. So that helps a lot for at least the England squad, which are doing okay in this tournament. Let's look at the bracket. The round 16 begins on August 5th. Keep in mind, these games are overnight, usually like 9 p.m., 3 a.m. Eastern. So let's look at the first round. Switzerland versus Spain, August 5th. Holland versus South Africa, then Japan, Norway, Sweden versus USA. Interesting rivalry there, which we'll talk about that a little bit later. Australia versus Denmark. France will play the winner the runners up of Group H. England versus Nigeria, and then the winner of Group H against Jamaica, which Jamaica is having a great tournament so far. And Group H, everyone's wondering about it, and I got the stats in front of me to say what could happen. Group H is actually Colombia, Germany, Morocco, and Korea. My parents are from Colombia, so I'm pulling for Colombia. Colombia has 6 points. They beat Germany 2-1, which is pretty huge in the women's game. So Colombia will advance to the round 16 if they win or draw. They got 6 points, so they're pretty much comfortable. Colombia wins the group if they win or draw. They could be eliminated. This is all tight because the group is Colombia 6, Germany 3, Morocco 3, Korea 0. So only those 3 teams can make it to the round of 16. Colombia could be eliminated if they lose against Morocco and Germany defeats Korea and loses its tiebreaker Germany and Morocco. Germany advances to round 16 if they defeat Korea and Colombia wins or draws. And Morocco advances if they defeat Colombia and Germany defeats Korea.
Don't stop, Dante. That's way too complicated. But
Germany and Colombia have the upper hand, it seems like.
Yes, they do. And if Germany wins and Colombia doesn't lose, they're going to go through. And I think that's probably the best thing for this tournament. The Moroccans were the first Muslim country to win a game ever in the World Cup. So congratulations to them. They look pretty competent. I don't think they can that beat Colombia, but it's really really up in the air. South Korea is still in this tournament too, and that's why group play is so much fun. It's not over, but for the if you're a neutral, you want to see Colombia advance. They're exciting, and Germany is a traditional power, and it would just make the tournament stronger. But if you go back to that pairing, it looks to me like the U.S. actually has the easier side of the draw, even after all they've been through. That's let me see here. No, well, maybe you'll put it back. Doesn't matter.
I'll put the bracket right here.
There we go. Let's go through it. I mean, the U.S., if they beat Sweden, they play the winner of Japan, Norway. That's gonna be a very difficult match because Japan is very technical and skilled. They have given the U.S. All they can handle in previous World Cup games and Olympic finals. They've beaten us. And the Netherlands, as we've seen, is a good team, but the Netherlands and Spain, they're not world beaters. The Netherlands, for all their abilities, did not beat the United States when they played so very well, and we played not so well at all. Spain is very shorthanded. A lot of their players are boycotting this tournament because they're pissed off at the coach. So this is not a bad side of the draw to be on if you're the United States, and we shouldn't lose sight of that because this is a tournament, and you have to appreciate where you are in the great scheme of things. By the same token, what happens if Germany and Colombia go through? Well, France versus Germany or Colombia in that August 8 game, that's an outstanding round of 16 match.
It's going to be a tough match for France either way.
Yes. And then it's obviously very important for Colombia or Germany to win that group, because that means you get Jamaica. Now, Jamaica, congratulations. They have not been scored upon in this tournament, if I'm not mistaken.
Great job, Jamaica.
Their goalie stood on her head in that last game. It was incredible what they did. Oh God, who did they beat? No, they tied. Can't remember.
Let me pull that up with Jamaica.
Oh, Brazil. Yeah, huge upset. Brazil,
wow.
really.
That's massive.
Sort of
Brazil, by the way, guys, Brazil is pretty good in the women's side as well. So
they're very good. And they pulled Marta, 37 years old, and started her in that game because they needed to score goals, couldn't get one. And Jamaica goes through. So that's a huge loss for the tournament. I think Brazil would have been a better, sort of choice for neutrals, a little more ability maybe to knock out a good team, but you got to take care of your business, and Brazil did not do it. But again, look at all these great teams on this side of the draw. England, Australia with Sam Kerr, their best player, has sat out the whole group stage. They advanced without her. France, very good, getting better with every game, which is what you have to do in this tournament. It's something that the US, people have talked about, oh, well, they'll pull themselves together. Even Argentina in the last World Cup in Qatar, they lost the opener to Saudi Arabia. I mean, they were terrible, but they pulled themselves together and played a little better in the second game. Then they eliminated Mexico in the third game. They got better with every game. This US team has not done that. So we'll see if they can start doing it with the Sweden game. But that side of the draw with England, Germany, France, Colombia, Australia, much more difficult.
Yeah, definitely. We're a little bit luckier, a little bit easier. Norway has a lot of history with us as well. And Japan, I'm not really sure about Japan. But you're right. Either way, every match is going to be difficult this round. There ain't going to be any squeaker. I mean, like any walk in the park.
No.
So
I expect the Netherlands and Spain to advance. South Africa has shown the ability to score goals, but they give up a ton of goals. Switzerland doesn't have much. Norway, I think, is past it. They ran up a lot of goals against bad teams and can't beat good ones anymore. Sweden, the U.S. could arguably have its most difficult game in the round of 16. That's gonna be very difficult, but at least Sweden doesn't play like the Netherlands or Portugal does. Japan does, and that game in August 11th, that will be very difficult. So yeah, no easy ones, but a better draw if you're an American fan.
Absolutely. From this side of the bracket, let's look at this part.
Mm-hmm.
Who will come out like up top? I'm thinking France or England. I think England.
I think England is shown to be the strongest side through the group stage, which of course means nothing when you get to a knockout game. But I like England coming out of this side of the draw. But I think you might see England, Australia in a semifinal. Australia's playing at home. They've got huge support. They have their best player, one of the best players in the world, back and fit. They're going to be as good as they've ever been. You're never going to get a better Australian team playing at home in a quarterfinal against France, presumably, and a semifinal against what I expect to be England.
And for this side of the bracket, are you confident USA will make it all the way to the end?
No.
Me either. Me either.
I mean, it's fascinating for a neutral observer. As an American, I want them to win.
Yeah, me too.
But it's fascinating to watch this team. They've been built up as the U.S. against the world. They've been just it's a given that they're the best team in the tournament, and everyone's coming to get them. And they won once in the opening stage against Vietnam, which is a terrible team. They tied a game they could well have lost against the Netherlands, and they really should have lost against Portugal, which is just sort of mind blowing. But I think that you got to give Portugal some cred. I mean, they played a beautiful match, and they played a brave match. They held the ball against this team. They passed it through them, in the midfield with great skill and technical ability and brave. That they were so brave. I mean, they stood with this team that was supposed to kill them. Then they were talking about running up the score to try to beat the Netherlands for the winning. And win the group. They couldn't even score against. It was an amazing performance.
Interesting enough. I think USA might make it out to the semifinal, and maybe from this side, either Spain or Holland. So we'll see how that cracks up. There could be surprises.
One more thing, just to talk about how good Japan is. Japan destroyed Spain. They beat them 4-0. and could have had 3 more goals. They're technically excellent. They're really fast. They're not the biggest, most physically imposing team. I think the U.S., will try to score against them on set pieces and muscle them. But man, they're really good. That they're extremely fit. I thought it was interesting that Carly Lloyd, who's really become the center of a couple of maelstroms here, is taking ahead. Pointed out, she goes, "I don't think this team is fit." Her own team. I don't think,
right.
and they did not look good in the latter stages of both the matches that were close, especially Portugal, when they were just, they had no shape. They didn't seem to understand tactically what they should be doing, and that's what tired players do.
Yeah, you gotta be very fit for these type of tournaments, and you gotta go deep as well. So we'll see what happens in the next upcoming days. August 5th is the first round of 16 games. So we'll see what happens. Let's go stateside.
Yeah,
our very own legend Bruce Arena, which Hal and I are very familiar with, was placed on work leave pending on an investigation from Major League Soccer into allegations he made insensitive and inappropriate remarks. He is the former 2-time coach for the U.S. men's national team. He has won MLS Cups with DC United and also LA Galaxy. Bruce Arena is known to say some stuff. Let's be honest. He might be old school. You could call him that. But is this a big boo-boo, or this is not good?
Yeah, I have no idea. Does anyone have any idea what the substance of his alleged statements were? I don't. It's an allegation of workplace misconduct. I don't know, what that means. It could mean any number of things. I would hesitate to guess. It's not spelled out in this or any story that I saw, and I'm sure that's no mistake. The team and the league seem to be keeping it in-house. They've announced it. He won't be coaching in the League's Cup matches and any future matches until this has been resolved. But I don't know what he said, and I don't think we're going to know until it's over. And in fact, if he is cleared, I'm not sure that we'll ever know.
Yeah, he's a legend. Obviously, as Hal said, they're looking, the allegations are insensitive and inappropriate. And their allegations of workplace misconduct extremely seriously, and is working closely with the league and fully cooperating with his investigation. And the interim coach is Kurt Analfo. Is in place as interim sports team director, and Richie Williams was named interim coach. So I guess Bruce Arena was doing both, director and coach.
Yeah, I guess he was, and he was making he was essentially the GM. They call them sporting directors in world football. Richie Williams, former U.S. men's national team midfielder. I think he was involved with DC United's management at some point. Look, Bruce Arena is a famous truth teller. He gives off the vibe that he's well past caring what anyone else thinks, and there's no way to know whether or not that attitude and that impression that he gives to the public has anything to do with what went down here. We don't know, and I don't think it's fair to speculate. That they've played very well this season. They are leading the Eastern Conference, if I'm not mistaken. And I'd have to look at the bracket again to see what I'm pretty sure they advanced in the League's Cup. So we'll get to that in a moment.
Absolutely. So, and he's won, to be more exact, he's won 5 MLS Cups, 3 with LA and 2 with DC. That's a lot.
It is, but in this day and age, I don't know that counts for a hill of beans.
You're right.
If you've been working, if you said and behaved in an inappropriate manner in the New England Revolution workplace, I don't know that matters at all.
No, not at all.
And it probably shouldn't matter.
Yeah, it's different. They are second place in the East, behind Cincinnati, so they are in a good placing. Bruce Arena always puts these teams in the top 4. It's quite incredible. And New England, I mean, they're probably not as good as Galaxy and like the past DC United teams, but definitely a good coach. But we'll see what happens. Obviously, investigation ongoing. We talked about the Leagues Cup, first year, round of 32. I never seen a huge tournament like this. Maybe FA Cup might go that far. But a lot going on here. Miami, everyone's looking at Miami right now because they'll be playing Orlando, and of course Messi is there. So they divided up in regions: West, East, Central, and South, mixed with Mexican clubs and MLS clubs. I've watched about 2 matches. There's only groups of 3. Yeah, like the Inter Miami matches. But so far this tournament is looking pretty good.
I'm enjoying it. I'm very curious about Liga MX. I started watching it a couple of years ago. I had way more familiarity with it than I had 3 years ago. It is arguably the best league in North America, maybe the richest league in all of the Western Hemisphere. And it's something that, this Leagues Cup I think is really interesting, and I support the idea. Now, why? Well, it's impossible for the international, the national teams of the US and Mexico to cooperate on much. They created the Nations League and they create the Gold Cup so that they can play each other and they can put it on TV and we can all watch. And that's great, but that's not cooperation. The Leagues Cup is really an example of cooperation between these 2 leagues. And I think it's sort of fascinating to see it. On a competitive level, I'm glad to see that MLS fared as well as it did. There's more clubs in MLS than there is in Liga MX, the first division of Mexican football. So there are more teams. So, but we don't have a lot of Mexican on Mexican first round games here because the US held up its end of the bargain. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, we have all the intra-league games are MLS games. You got Cincinnati and Nashville. You have Inter Miami and Orlando, which is sort of a fun match. I'll be interested to see where that's held, and if it's held in Orlando, what kind of crowd they get. It should be pretty good.
Of course, for some reason.
Yeah. But what makes it interesting is that you don't just, when I'm watching a Liga MX match, I can enjoy Cruz Azul versus Monterrey. The standard of play is very good, and the crowds are usually very good. But I like these games against the MLS because it puts it in context. I know how good Club America is in the context of the team from MLS they're playing. Now, Cruz Azul is playing Charlotte in the first round, if I'm not mistaken. Right. That will be very interesting. I mean, we would expect Cruz Azul to crush them, wouldn't we not? I mean, but if they put up a fight and they're going to be playing in Charlotte, maybe not. I think it's great. I think the cooperation that they're showing is really far-sighted. They can't, and I don't know whether you knew this, but Mexican clubs sell their TV rights individually. They don't sell. Liga MX does not sell national TV rights outside of Mexico. So, and I don't even think they do it inside of Mexico. So these clubs have obviously said, you know what? This Leagues Cup is a great way for us to make money. We'll play all the games in the US, which puts us at a competitive disadvantage, but we can sell those rights and make money on this event. I don't think that this threatens the Gold Cup or the CONCACAF Champions League as much as it threatens something like the US Open Cup. If this is refined and improved over the next couple of years and becomes an annual knockout competition amongst these 2 dominant leagues, I think it's a winner. I'll watch it. The US Open Cup is fun sometimes, but when MLS is the top dog, again, I'm not sure I care whether or not the lower division teams, I'm not sure I care how good the level of play is that the Pittsburgh Riverhounds happen to put out there when they play the New England Revolution. Part of me wants them to win because I'd rather have a Cinderella in the final than a couple of MLS clubs that probably don't care as much about advancing. But anyway, I like the idea of these knockout competitions, these cups. It's, in England, they call them cup games for a reason. They're knockouts or they're home and home knockouts, and they're fun. You have a league going on all year at the same time, but you have these knockout competitions. This seems to me an interesting idea that is worth refining and continuing.
Yeah, in Europe and in specifically in England, they have a couple of in-season tournaments like the FA Cup, EFL Cup, and of course the Champions League. Up in the US, well, we only had the US Open Cup. Now we got Leagues Cup, so I
Right.
like this. Bring some variety, especially kind of intermingles more with Mexico. Obviously, like the other times that we face Mexican clubs is at the CONCACAF Champions League.
Right.
So there's a little bit more intimate. It feels like.
Yeah, and I don't know that it's fair to the good clubs in Costa Rica and El Salvador, and there are some good clubs. Maybe I don't know. Maybe this I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen to that, because the CONCACAF Champions League, the Champions League, formula is tried and true. It does pull good ratings across the region. The Europeans have shown it can be very, very lucrative.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the Western Hemisphere. Maybe it makes more sense. Maybe this is something that the winners, or we pull teams in from Brazil and Argentina. It's something that on top of the Copa Libertadores and I don't know, but
It could happen.
You don't have that much time in the FIFA windows to get stuff like this done with international teams. And when you expand a World Cup to 48 teams, as they have done, qualifying for that World Cup becomes a little more of a formality for the good clubs, for the good national sides. The flexibility and the money is on the club side. So I'm not surprised to see this, but I applaud it. I think it's a good idea.
Great idea. And as Hal said, I definitely could see that expanding to South American clubs. But we'll see what happens 1 year at a time. Before we go, I want to give tribute to the legend Gianluigi Buffon, retired today at 45 years old, an Italian goalkeeper. He played most of his career in Juventus, started with Parma, ended with Parma. Also played for PSG for a season and played for the Italian national team for, almost 21 years. Legend, played till 45. I thought he was going to retire 42, 41, but he's made it this far.
Well, he's a legend. To talk to any goalkeepers, players, and from 30, 40 years ago, they all just worship this guy. And he's a World Cup winner, and he spanned the eras where keepers never played with their feet, and when they did, he was able to handle it all. He's one in a long line of great Italian keepers, Dino Zoff and Walter Zenga, and he was the next in line, and he may be the best of all of them. So saludos, as they say.
Exactly. Salute to Gianluigi Buffon, a legend in this making. Well, Hal Phillips, we did a lot of talking on 2 different tournaments and a retiree. Anything else you want to add on before we head off on this beautiful Wednesday?
Well, I think just to let people know, today is August 2nd. The Leagues Cup is on tonight, and there's some great matches: Pachuca and Houston, Miami and Orlando.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about Mazatlan and Dallas. This is just one side of the draw. But New England Revolution will be playing Atlas. That's tomorrow. If you have the Apple package, get yourself some popcorn. There's a lot of good matches to watch.
I have got the Apple package since Messi started with Inter Miami. I've been watching Ted Lasso. Pretty good show. I was kind of surprised. Kind of gives me an Office feel to it, but recommended if you haven't seen it.
It's good. It's a good show. It's not really about soccer.
It's drama.
And in that way, I guess I found it sort of disappointing. But you can't talk down Ted Lasso. People jump down your throats.
True. Well, there you have it. Leagues Cup, Women's World Cup, 2 tournaments before the Premier League. I think is the league that will start August 15th. Your Tottenham is looking good to keep Harry Kane, right?
I don't know about that. I don't know that it makes much sense. I did a depressing. I tried to watch their game against Leicester in Jakarta, and I flipped it on because oh, look at that, and it's on. So they opened, and there was just a shot of this soccer field in Jakarta that the rain was just pissing down, and I'm like, well, I thought maybe someone will come on and say, oh, the game has been delayed, or, stay tuned for the game. It's going to start, or it's on tape. I don't know. Well, 15 minutes go by, nothing happens. So eventually I turned it off, and I found out later that they did cancel the match because there was a monsoon coming through. So they only played like 2 games on this trip, and they didn't really play anybody good except for West Ham, who beat them. So not a great Asian swing for my boys.
Yeah, we'll see with the new era of Angie Postecoglou, former Celtic coach. We'll see what happens with Tottenham. Liverpool had a good performance this offseason. A good goal by Luis Diaz, if you haven't seen it, scored this morning. Well, there you have it. Hal, what is the best way to reach you online to talk to you about Tottenham's upcoming season?
Let me gen0.halphillips.net is my blog, but do go to dickinsonmoses.com. That's the publisher that Andy Markovitz and I share. You can see about his book, and read more about women's soccer and the history, and it's an important, relevant history. But you'll also see my book there, Generation Zero, which has been on sale for a year now and still selling briskly.
That's amazing. And a lot of people are researching, hey, how did we, start with all this? And it started, I think, in 88.
Yeah. 89. How did we get here? How did we get here? If you're a certain age, you're like, how did this happen? How do we talk about, we're talking about the Leagues Cup and a Women's World Cup and a U.S. national team that is, really good. Oh, look at that. Generation Zero is the story of, how we got here. And Andy's book on the left there is also about that, but from the women's perspective, which is completely different and fascinating.
Amazing. Well, how this is pretty awesome. Check out Andre Markovitz. We'll leave the link in the description. You can reach us on the sportscast.net on the website, or go to our Twitter, the Sportscast1. We'll be reliving what's going to happen this week in the tournaments, and hopefully the US will beat Sweden at least, and then we'll go from there. One game at a time, right, Hal?
One game at a time.
Well, Hal, appreciate you coming on to the Sportscast.